Do, do I look different?
Yes.
Welcome to the Dark Evil Experience. We're here to take your soul. When it comes around, it brings me to my knees. Satan!
Hail to the king, baby.
Hey freaks, welcome back to the Scream Kingdom, recorded live from the Tavern of Terror here in beautiful downtown Fremont, Ohio. I'm your host, Scream King Tom. America has no kings, but they have Scream Kings, baby. As always, I'm enjoying a lovely Audium Void Brewing Company libation. That's good beer. In this episode, we're going to talk about another franchise that is beloved to horror fans the world over and has produced one of the most iconic and some of the most iconic characters in the horror realm. I'm talking about, of course, Evil Dead, or The Evil Dead as it is officially on the original poster. Now, I have a good story about seeing the first Evil Dead movie way back when I was a kid, probably 11 years old maybe. I conned my mom at the local newsstand after a visit there into buying me Fangoria number 23 that of course had Bruce Campbell with the chainsaw and the skeletal arms coming in from the sides. Big article on this movie called The Evil Dead. After reading the article, I absolutely had to see this movie. And me being 11 years old, it probably wasn't going to happen for a while. Fast forward to maybe a year and a half later, I was able to rent the VHS. And what I saw changed my life. The secluded cabin, the weird, gross effects, the demonic aspects, the Deadites, the dimensional travel, the Bruce fucking Campbell. It was the chin that would not stop. Beautiful movie, loved it. Got so much press from the quote from Stephen King on the poster, and it set the horror world ablaze. You really had to be alive at that time when this movie came out, and old enough to know, which yeah, I'm old, to kind of weigh the aspect or the impact that they had on horror fans and horror movies in general. It literally changed the game, because here was a movie that was made for maybe $375,000 that went on to gross millions. I think at one point it was like 12.5 million domestically, just on a $375,000 investment, which is amazing as far as independent cinema goes. And like I said, it really changed the game. Fast forward a few years, and we get Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn, which is a quasi remake, but kind of a reimagining of the first movie. And then it takes the story a little further, and we get into more of the lore of the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, bound in human flesh, inked in human blood. And there's a lot more comedy introduced to the film, and I think it's probably this and Return of the Living Dead are probably the two quintessential, definitive, perfect horror comedy films. I don't think you can do them much better than Evil Dead 2 or Return of the Living Dead for that matter. And it also introduced us to one of the most gross characters, or females, to ever grace the screen, Henrietta. Yes, down in a fruit cellar. I'll swallow your soul. But yeah, Henrietta in this movie, great stuff. I'll swallow your soul, great catchphrase. The hand, let's not forget the hand. The laughing deer head, the laughing cabin. Great stuff. The mirror scene. There's just so much you could go on and on about this movie. It really made Bruce Campbell it elevated him as an actor, and Sam Raimi definitely as a filmmaker, because the first two Evil Dead movies, nobody had seen camera work like that. It was just insane the stuff they were able to do. And when you watch the behind the scenes stuff from those movies, you kind of get the impression that they were really breaking ground here, and they were really making so much out of nothing. Just beautiful, beautiful stuff, and like I said, an iconic horror movie that stands up with everything. Fast forward a few years later, and we have the often seen, and in fact, surprisingly, this is a lot of people's gateway into the Evil Dead realm, Army of Darkness, which was heavy on comedy, more of an action movie, but Bruce Campbell got to ham it up again. Amazing effects. Sam Raimi at the helm again. Bill Moseley has a small part. We'll talk about that later. Beautiful makeup, stunning sets. I mean, big medieval castles, horse battles, battles on horseback, the Army of Deadites, the Pit Witch. There's just so many iconic moments, so many one-liners that, hail to the king, baby, which you heard at the beginning of this episode. S-Smart, shop smart, shop S-Smart. Just so much greatness rolled into one movie. Like I said, a little more on the comedy side. In the core movies of Evil Dead, you can take Army of Darkness as the comedy film of that, bridging the gap between the first movie, which the first movie there's zero humor. There's just balls out horror and gore. Evil Dead 2 is that transition piece where you have the hardcore horror elements and the gore, and then you also have the humor, and it just evolves into what is mostly a humorous adventure movie in Army of Darkness. So not many scares in Army of Darkness, but still a quality film. And it again just elevated Bruce Campbell's star status. He went on to write a couple books, do all kinds of TV, plenty of other movies and series. Just a great actor, and it elevated, of course, Sam Raimi's career, went on to great things, and a lot of Rob Tapert and a lot of other people that were involved just went on to great things, like Greg Nicotero, who did effects on Evil Dead 2. We all know where his career trajectory ended up, and things like that. The core movies that to me are some of my favorites. I own a lot of memorabilia, a lot of merchandise. In fact, at Cinema Wasteland, Tom Sullivan, who did the art direction and a lot of the art, and designed the Necronomicon, and did a lot of the special effects on the first film, and then was involved in the second film. He does a brilliant museum of Evil Dead at Cinema Wasteland every year, and great guy to talk to. Has a million stories, really friendly, and he'll talk your ear off. I managed to get a signed Necronomicon page. It's on here. It says to Tom. He said he did know how to spell that. I'll Swallow Your Soul, Tom Sullivan, and he sketched a little screaming skull down here. But treasured piece of memorabilia here, because, and I know I talk about Cinema Wasteland a lot, but I go there, so shut up. It's a great show. Anyway, moving on. In 2013, we saw not a reboot, a continuation of the Evil Dead story, which also involved the cabin, the Necronomicon, the iconic old Delta 88, and this time our protagonist wasn't Ash. It was a addicted girl named with a drug problem named Mia, who, with some friends and her brother, go to the cabin in the woods and find it has been broken into, and there's some weird things going on in the basement. Find the Necronomicon. People become Deadites. They become possessed by whatever Kandarian demon we have going on. And again, a balls-out horror movie. I really love this film. Fede Alvarez did a great job with the direction. There's literal gallons of blood used in it, and it's just to me, a great film. I know when it was first announced, a lot of people were like, oh my god, why are they doing another Evil Dead movie? But when you think about it, the horror nerds had been clamoring for it for years, but they wanted the return of Ash, and I don't think you could fit Ash in a story like that that's going to have mainstream appeal as far as people who maybe aren't familiar with the earlier films that want the shit scared out of them. And I think Evil Dead 2013 did a great job of that. Which now, according to Sam Raimi and some of the other people involved, it's canon that there's more than one Necronomicon. As you remember in Army of Darkness, there's 3. So they kind of frame this as a continuation of the story involving different people with the same type of demonic possession thing going on. And then in 2016, horror fans got exactly what they were asking for with the Starz series Ash vs. Evil Dead, which brought us back to Ash, the wisecracking, reluctant hero who's in all kinds of trouble, and it introduced us to some great characters. The Ghost Beaters, with Ray Santiago playing Pablo Boulevard, who does a great job in all 3 seasons of Ash vs. Evil Dead. And then definitively the hottest girl to ever grace an Evil Dead franchise project. I'm talking, of course, about Dana DiLorenzo, who played Kelly Maxwell in all 3 seasons. Just a smoking hot, sexy, badass girl. The character and the actress are both amazing. Definitely check it out. That lasted for 3 seasons before Starz eventually canceled it. And you know what? I think it wrapped up when it should have. But there were so many great characters in this. The Delta 88 is basically a character on its own. We were introduced to Ruby, who was played exceptionally well by the extremely talented and extremely attractive Lucy Lawless. And then, of course, Chet, played by Ted Raimi, Sam Raimi's brother, who's been involved in the franchise. Ellen Sandweiss from Evil Dead 2 makes an appearance. Just a great show. Definitely check that out if you get a chance. And then it brought us to the latest movie in the Evil Dead franchise, which was 2023's Evil Dead Rise, which introduced us to another female Ash surrogate named Beth, who visits her sister Ellie, and eventually a Book of the Dead is uncovered in an apartment complex, which changes it from the rural, woodsy setting to a more urban setting, and Ellie becomes a deadite, and carnage ensues. Another very scary movie, very little humor in this. There's a few like blackly comic moments in it, and much like Evil Dead 2013, there's an after credit scene with Ash, and this one you actually hear his voice on a recording, which kind of buys into the time jumping thing and the alternate realities that a Necronomicon may exist in. And like I said, Sam Raimi came out after this movie and said, yes, both these movies are canon. There's more than one Necronomicon, and of course the Reddit theories are the 3 that you saw in Army of Darkness. So that's true. I don't know, but a lot of people were complaining about Evil Dead Rise 2, and I don't see the complaint. To me, it's Evil Dead. Everybody, horror fans and fans of the franchise, are always clamoring for more. And when you get more, sometimes fanboys find something to bitch about. And of course, people do find something to bitch about with this movie. And I think it's fantastic. I will watch it anytime it's on. I will seek it out on streaming. I own it on physical media. And that's that, man. It's a great movie. And I know you're asking yourself, Tom, what is the definitive... Can I buy everything in one package? And unfortunately, as of right now, you can't because of conflicting studios and things like that. But I will say, if you can find it, I don't know how rare they are. I saw one used the other day in a used store for $75. But the Groovy Collection is an amazing set. It opens with this special box. I'm going to try not to drop this here. With a booklet in it. You pop said booklet out, and again I'm going to try to do this without dropping it. You pop said booklet out, and in this unique case you find the booklet, and you have the first film on 4K and Blu-ray, the second film on 4K and Blu-ray, and all 3 seasons of Ash vs. Evil Dead on Blu-ray, bonus features, and great stuff. An extra disc of bonus content. You got Ash on the front, groovy, great stuff. That is a great set. It does not contain Army of Darkness. The closest you're going to get to that is the Scream Factory release in 4K of Army of Darkness. And I will say that the 4K version does not have all the bonus features in 4K. It's just got the theatrical release in 4K, but I do own that, and like I said, you have to buy that separately because of rights and different studios and everything. That I won't get into the politics of it. But that is the definitive version that you can buy. There's also, they haven't done the 4-hour plus documentary treatment deep dive like they've done with Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Return of the Living Dead, Leviathan, the Hellraiser documentary. It was in 3 parts over 3 discs. And recently, Child's Play, the doc of Chucky. They haven't done that deep dive on Evil Dead, but there are 2 quality documentaries. One I think you can find on streaming. I believe it's on Tubi right now. Is Hail to the Deadites, which is an interesting documentary about Evil Dead fandom. And you see some really rabid Evil Dead fans, and you find out why the series means so much to people. And then there's also a great documentary on Tom Sullivan that he's the focus of, and it's actually kind of a melancholy story about certain parts of his life, but it's also really informative on the making of Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 and what they went through, and some of the improvisation they did, including some of the stop motion models, the claymation things that they did on the special effects. And that's called Invaluable, the true story of an epic artist. And that's about Tom Sullivan. That's available on Blu-ray right now, and as far as streaming, Google it. I have no idea. But that, in a nutshell, is there's so much more we could talk about Evil Dead. Like I said, I'm a huge fan. Right over there in the Tavern of Terror, I have a replica Necronomicon on an easel setting up. I have a one-sheet Evil Dead 1 poster in here. Great stuff. Like I said, I got to hang this up yet. That's my Necronomicon page signed by the guy that drew it himself, Tom Sullivan. Great. I have so many Ash action figures. It's ridiculous. I'm a huge fan of this movie. It really made an impact on me. Continues to make an impact on me. And anything Evil Dead, I'll watch. Evil Dead Burn has been announced and is in pre-production now, I believe. I'll be the first one to buy a ticket for that. The hell with the haters. Because there was a lot of haters when they came out with Evil Dead 2013, and there has been since. But that is horror fandom. We're not as toxic as Star Trek or Star Wars fans, but horror fans can be pretty fucking toxic. Speaking of toxic, right after this, I have a sit-down chat about the Evil Dead franchise and what it means to him by my former co-conspirator at nerdremix.com way back in the day, and somebody who's developed into a really talented filmmaker, cinematographer, and editor, who works a lot in that field and who is very enthusiastic about the horror genre. My man, the myth, the legend, Derek Huey. So that'll be right after this, so stay tuned for that. And all right, welcome to the Tavern of Terror in the Scream Kingdom. My man, the esteemed editor and cinematographer, and my former co-conspirator at nerdremix.com, Mr. Derek Huey. Derek, welcome to the Scream Kingdom.
The only esteem here is low self-esteem. So I see we got that Evil Dead going on in the back.
Yes, that's the theme of this episode is Evil Dead, and I'm drinking a Diet Dr. Pepper instead of a beer because it's early in the day.
Yeah, damn shame. Last night I would have enjoyed some bourbon with you. And I would have done that Freddy Krueger. What did he say? Where's the fucking bourbon?
So Evil Dead, do you remember the first time you saw it?
Yeah, I actually just told this story earlier today because I just made an Evil Dead video today just to catch myself up with it, just to be more prepared. I saw it when it came out on VHS. It was one of those like digital remaster VHSs, so it looked all fancy and shit. And I might have been like 12, 13, around
Mhm.
that age, so a really young age. But the weird thing is I saw Army of Darkness beforehand, and I had no clue that this was connected. I only bought this film because of the cover, and I was young as fuck, and I'm like, yeah, that looks cool, I'll get it. And I usually bought like a new horror movie every like month because that's how much I had to save for one. So I was about 12 or 13, and then when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, it has the same actor from Army of Darkness. And then I was like, oh my God, he has the same name as the same guy from the Army of
Kind of
Darkness.
wearing the same clothes too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to look it up, and you thought that would be enough to clue me in, but I had to look it up, and then I was like, oh my God. And this was like, new internet era. So I don't know what we had back then.
I think it's weird that some people, and you're not the first person I've talked to that's kind of went into this franchise backwards with Army of Darkness. But it's really weird because the original Evil Dead is kind of an anomaly in the series because there's no humor in it. It's a balls out horror movie.
No, it's straight up. And it's so weird how the series evolves from the first one being straight up horror, like a gore splatter horror, and then the second one, horror comedy. You still have, it's more comedic, but then the third one, they just embrace slapstick all the way. It's like a weird, ever evolving series, but then the last two ones, they just went straight horror again.
Yeah, Evil Dead 2, I think, is the quintessential horror comedy. I think that's the one that was that maybe Return of the Living Dead are the two ones that were done exactly right.
I'll add on top of that an American Werewolf in London. That's
True.
also one that I think's fucking fantastic. But yeah, they mix the comedy and the horror so well.
And I think they did that to great effect in Ash versus Evil Dead, the series.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Um,
actually one of my favorite series. I usually don't rewatch series. That's the only series I've rewatched a few times.
yeah, I think I've watched it two or three times myself. I mean, you can't get enough of Pablo and Kelly, the Ghost Beaters.
Man, what perfect casting too. Like at first I didn't dig them, but then as the series went on, I'm like, okay, I can fuck with these guys. Then when Pablo died and he's just driving in the fucking car doing donuts down the fucking street, oh, I love that scene.
Yeah, the
The
Delta was definitely a
music.
character of its own in Evil Ash versus Evil Dead, and then Dana DiLorenzo, hottest girl in the series.
Yeah. And then the
With
music also in the series, top notch.
I will say that Alan Sandwich has aged very well. I saw her at Horror Hound a few years ago, and then she made the cameo in Ash versus Evil Dead.
Yeah, I
She's
remember that.
yeah.
It's funny because she aged just how she would have in real life. You go, what bullshit? She should have been young.
Now Evil Dead 2, I know when I first saw that, I was like, okay, it's a remake of the first one, but it's also a continuation of the first one. I mean, what was your take on that one?
Evil Dead 2, as in terms of being a sequel, I think it was literally like it rehashed the beginning, the first movie, but it just changed a few things. And then the moment you see the entity come, that's when the sequel starts for me.
Now, Army of Darkness, that's something that I think was shown on TBS every 5 minutes a few years ago. But I was surprised to find out when I saw. Have you ever seen Hail to the Deadites, the documentary about
No, the
Evil Dead
documentary.
fans?
No, I should. I think it's on Shudder. I really should.
I think it's on Tubi right now too. But what is it on Tubi? But I was shocked to find out watching that Bill Moseley actually was in Army of Darkness as one of the
Oh,
Deadite Army.
yeah, I think I've heard of that before. I mean, I've never really noticed him, but that's pretty badass.
He's actually said that he's got pictures of it from that he has at conventions, and people have said you weren't Evil Ash. He goes, no, that's not Evil Ash. It's the one Deadite commander. Look at the face. He goes, I was uncredited in Army of Darkness. He said he had sent an email or a message or called Sam Raimi and said that he really admired the first movie and please can I be in this? And they gave him a bit
I,
part in it.
I always liked Mosley and how he got his role into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre too.
Absolutely.
One funny thing I noticed when rewatching Evil Dead is, when they did a lead in the woods, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think they did to Scotty when he went to the woods? I made that connection today while watching it. I'm like, oh no, the branch isn't the only thing in his leg. Or it's not, whatever. You know what I meant.
Sodomized by, vegetation. Yeah, sure.
Because he did come back looking mighty stiff.
I'm surprised. And then, I recently got the 4K set, the Groovy collection, and the original Evil Dead. I remembered I hadn't watched it in a while, and I remember the stop motion claymation effects towards the end being kind of cheesy, but they still hold up really well. I was kind of shocked, but Tom Sullivan did a lot of the special effects work and a lot of art direction work on that. If you ever do get a chance, speaking of another Evil Dead documentary, they haven't done the 4 hour deep dive like they have with Return of the Living Dead or Hellraiser or Child's Play or Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th, which I think they should do a deep dive on it. But there's a documentary about Tom Sullivan. Oh shit, I can't. The name of it is something about an awesome artist. I have the Blu-ray, but I recommend that. Very cool documentary. And Tom Sullivan each year at Cinema Wasteland sets up his little Evil Dead museum in one of the side
God,
rooms.
I gotta go to that.
And I just went last weekend, and Tom Sullivan was there. That guy will talk your ear off. He's got so many stories, and he'll sit there and tell you a story and get moved to tears. He's a very emotional guy, and if you watch the documentary, it's kind of a morose story, kind of a melancholy story, because he had some unfortunate things happen in his life, and he's basically just a geek that made a movie with some friends and gained some notoriety out of it. But if you ever get a chance to go to Wasteland, I know every time I'm on this fucking podcast, I talk about Wasteland, but definitely try to check that out if put it on your bucket list.
No, definitely. That's why I really want to finish this movie with quickness. They'll be like, "Sir, you didn't even edit it." I'll be like, "Don't worry about it. I just need to go Cinema Wasteland. Just show it. Give me a reason." But yeah, definitely. Once I finish my movie, my plan is to go there because, God damn it, I've been wanting to go forever. But I did want to talk about the claymation effects that you brought up earlier, also.
Yeah.
God damn, man. I was shocked at how well it held up, but maybe it's because I was watching it on my computer screen, which, is what Martin Scorsese says to watch movies on, of course, just with your little headphones and on a little screen. But I thought it held up really well. There was one moment where, like, the frame shifted, but the effect stayed still. But besides that, it was fantastic. But now, ever since listening to the commentary, you can see the porridge pour out of the sleeve or oatmeal. And then I believe they said they used milk for all the other spraying stuff.
And then, they stepped it up a notch with Evil Dead 2. If you've ever watched the bonus features on the Blu-ray of that, where they show, Greg Nicotero and other people working on that and the cabin sets they built. For what they spent on that movie, they really made something special. And I think that's why it holds up really well today. And I think the big part of the appeal of Evil Dead is Ash.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your take on that character? What do you think makes him so special?
I mean, you just got a badass spouting one-liners. I mean, it's just the love for it's like an action hero movie star in a horror film. And you hardly got that, especially when this came out. I know there's probably some, but, I can't really name too many where the guy eventually becomes the Arnold Schwarzenegger of zombies, basically.
Well, I think a lot of it, I think they even fleshed that sarcastic one-liner, reluctant, bumbling hero to the nth degree in Ash versus Evil Dead. I mean, they just expanded on it,
Yeah.
and fleshed that character out so much. And then, of course, Ted Raimi in it, and everything else, playing his buddy, and the pink fuck episode. It's classic.
Yeah, the pink with Chet. Oh my God. There's one line which always sticks out to me. I don't remember the exact verbal or the verbiage beforehand, but it's something like, "Oh, he like he goes to the weak-souled people and blah blah blah," and then Ash is just like, "Yeah, well, he can do that on his own time." So summon it.
Now, something I don't have a whole lot of experience at, but I know you do. What's your favorite Evil Dead video game?
Oh God, Regeneration. It has Ted Raimi plays your sidekick, and he's just this dumbass one-lining spouting sidekick also. And the game, like I've been playing a lot of recent games, and then I recently started playing like these old type games, and it's just fucking fun. You don't have to like really concentrate too hard or like put. It's just so weird how the fun factor is just cranked up. While today I play games and I'm just like, when does the fun begin? Is this the fun? Do I have to pay more for the fun with DLC? But that game was really good. It had a bunch of different levels. It started off really strong and then it sort of teeters off towards the end. I guess they thought nobody would be playing it that long. But then there's the Fistful of Boomsticks, which is probably the worst. It's more like a Resident Evil game, and
Kind
it's
of a
the
first-person
same
shooter.
area. No, not a first-person shooter. It's you're in one area, which is God, I want to say Deerbrook, but I'm probably wrong. But it's just one town, and you go there from the past, present, future, and it's just you collect something, you go somewhere. It's not that great. But then there's the first one, which is another Resident Evil ripoff, and that you had to fucking collect gas in that one for your chainsaw. Dear God. But then they made a new one. Yeah, you're like, why did I ask him about video games? Then they made a new one where it's a multiplayer game, but they stopped all support on that, sadly. And you can either play as the demon, and they have all the Ashes you can play as. You can have a group of like Ash from Ash versus Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, Evil Dead 1, and Army of Darkness. It's insane.
Now, a lot of horror fans are divided on Evil Dead 2016 and then Evil Dead Rise. I thought Evil Dead 2016 was really harkens back to the original in that it was a balls out horror movie and there was no humor in it. And
Yeah.
same with Evil Dead Rise, and then they're making a new one, Evil Dead Burn. What's your take on the new entries into the franchise?
I mean, just I'm just gonna say I love Evil Dead. It doesn't matter which one you pop in, I'm
Yeah,
going
it's
to
like
love
Star
it.
Wars
I
to me.
don't.
As long it's Evil Dead, right? So you gotta like.
Well, maybe not Star Wars. Not recent Star Wars. I never thought there'd be a day when I'd stop watching a new Star Wars. Yet it came.
But a new Evil Dead movie, I'm buying a ticket every time.
Oh yeah. Day one, if I can. If my kids don't stop me, I'm there the first day. Yeah, the new Evil Deads. I just found them to be fucking perfect. The original, the first remake. Well, the remake. They say it's a continuation of the first movie, and not
Yeah,
an
I suppose
actual remake.
canon now. There's supposedly three Necronomicons, and
Yeah, I've heard that too. That he's like, and this is how I connect the universes. But I guess it's the three Necronomicons Ash found in Army of Darkness,
yeah,
maybe.
there you go. I mean, and I thought the design of the actual book in Evil Dead Rise was really fucking cool with the teeth spine things closing
Oh
it and everything
yeah,
else.
everyone had a cool ass look. I love the or I keep calling it the remake, but just the Evil Dead where they had that just fucking barbed wire
Yeah,
around it.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
that was really fucking sweet.
And the opening sequence in Evil Dead 2016 and Evil Dead Rise. I mean, the opening 10 minutes of those two movies are just fucking balls out horror. I mean, I think they really picked the right people to do those movies as far as writers and directors and even cast.
Yeah, Evil Dead Rise is just perfect. Like once it gets started, it does not stop. Once once the ground starts breaking and they have their Henrietta's pizza,
Yeah, and I think
it's all over.
like I said, I think that's a blast back to the first two movies, and that those two movies are fucking relentless. I mean, there's something happening all the time. Once it starts to cook, you're in for a ride. Strap in.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was watching Evil Dead 1. As soon as the tree scene happened, it was just nonstop scene after
Speaking
scene
of,
after. Oh no, we're gonna have to censor that. You're gonna
that
have to
was
put a
timing.
hand
That was
over it.
timing.
It's maybe I saw it and subconsciously was like, hey,
Well, with that, thanks for coming on. And before we go, what do you got to plug, man?
man, not much. Just I stopped shooting other people's films to start working on my own. So once that's done, then I'll start plugging that. But I did just work on a film called Grinners, and Joe Bob Briggs was on it. That's pretty badass. I got to work side by side with the master of horror, as I like. Well, maybe not the master of horror making, but the master of horror reviews. Cover.
But you're talking
we'll,
your
we'll
movie. You're
get
talking about
demonetized.
my girlfriend's a serial killer, right? That's the one you're working on.
I was talking about Grinners, another film I shot, but My Girlfriend the Serial Killer is the film that I'm currently working on.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm
that's what
not
I meant.
taking,
Yeah.
and I'm not taking any new jobs until we finish that. We're getting serious this time. God, it's been so long. We started our Indiegogo like 5 years ago.
Yeah, well, you
but
kind of got fucked by COVID too, so.
yeah, it was COVID, then having people to watch the kids. But then, now it's almost no excuse. Now,
Yeah.
so now we're going full steam. We're about to record some stuff with Cameron Scott in our basement.
Nice.
And
Yeah,
it's cool.
I just hung out with Cam last weekend. He was on the last episode of the Scream Kingdom, actually.
Hell yeah. Well,
And I
let
got
me
to
give him a past high five.
and I got to when I was at Wasteland last weekend, I got to talk to Heather Harlow, and I think she's involved in that project too.
Yeah, she's gonna play it. We already shot a little bit with her, but it's a different. We don't show her face on it, so she's gonna play a bigger role in the movie. Also, she's cool. I worked with her in almost every movie I've worked in in Illinois. Like every movie I work on in Illinois, I usually see her on set.
One of those people, right? That's just wants to work, right? Just has to love
Yeah,
for the genre.
yeah. I mean, that's what I want to do too. But I want to finish my movie now, and then I'll get back to more horror flicks. Something about getting bloody on set. It's always the best.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, again, thanks for coming on, man. Keep smoking meat, and I mean that in a literal sense, not as a backhanded homophobic slur. But
I'll also keep sucking dick too.
all right, man. Thanks, Derek. I appreciate it.
All right, peace. I don't
Hey guys,
suck dick,
Scream King
by the
Tom
way.
here. Hey guys, Scream King Tom here. I want to remind you to support the people that support us. I'm talking about, of course, the sponsors and the podcasts and shows that are near and dear to our heart. I'm going to start by the Audio Void Brewing Company, which I'm the proprietor of, and this is the only establishment that it's served at right now. But Audio Void Brewing Company, H.P. Lovecraft inspired ales, cream ales, and lagers brewed right here in beautiful downtown Fremont, Ohio. Also, check out some podcasts that I enjoy and that we enjoy here at the Scream Kingdom. I'm talking about the Borgo Pass Horror Podcast, done by the amazing Jim Towns and his rotating cast of co-hosts, but most of the time it's Livio Marino. Anything black and white, old school horror, they do a huge deep dive. We're talking 90-minute episodes, backgrounds on the actors, following along with the plot, shot by shot, from a filmmaker who knows his shit in Jim Towns, and just a beautiful, very entertaining podcast. Tune into it in your drive, wherever you're going, whatever your commute. It might take you a while to get through an episode. I drive a lot for work, so I hear them all the time. Also, check out The Jam with Brock and Dan, which is a podcast about music, skate culture, bike culture, and general life of a couple of 30-somethings, which is hosted and created by my son, Brock Leba, and his co-host, Dan Gardner. Check that out wherever you get your podcasts. Also, check out my good pal, Cameron Scott's podcast, Cinema Degeneration, which they do deep dives on everything. It runs the gamut. They just did a whole series on full moon features. The Trancers 3 episode was very entertaining. And also check out my pal Derek Huey's movie when it comes out, My Girlfriend the Serial Killer. Look for updates and everything else on the Scream Kingdom about that. I'll drop a plug for him whenever I can. And support independent horror. Seriously, we need you. Horror needs you. And indies are the future of horror. If you're tired of remakes, watch independent horror. All right? Thanks.
Oh.